recording, and let's roll this thing out. Welcome to the Details Podcast. We are, 3.5 months into quarantine now?
Yep.
Are you accustomed to it now? You're getting used to this life?
Definitely accustomed to it. Not necessarily used to it, I guess.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. It seems like it's getting less and less out there. I mean, if you go out now, you go for a coffee or something, like there's traffic, there's people moving around. It seems like everyone's getting a little restless.
But you're not one of those people that's going out to Bellwoods Trinity Park out in Toronto, eh?
I haven't been to Bellwoods yet. No, I mean, it's funny. I got a bunch of texts saying it was awesome. I should have showed up, but no, I'm just kidding.
I was good. I'm like, I'm not keeping that in the podcast. I don't need those kind of people after me.
Totally joking. No, that was pretty ugly, eh?
Well, it's crazy because now they have to quarantine themselves for 2 weeks, whether they do it or not. It's just why?
Let's get real. They're not going to. That's not happening.
No.
But yeah, man, I don't know. This is crazy. This is wild.
That impatient. How was your weekend, dude?
It was good. It's got outside a lot now that it's warm and everything. You know, it's a good time to take up the outdoor sports. How about yourself?
You're biking now, right?
Yeah. I got into the old mountain biking scene there, so we'll see how that goes. Yeah, it's been fun so far.
You've always had a bike, and you just did you watch the Landstock and just I want to hop on a bike now?
No. I've always liked biking. Recently, I've looked into cycling and stuff more as I am aspiring to complete an Ironman in the next decade, hopefully.
Right, you've brought that up.
But yeah.
That's good. And are you doing trails or just doing the street? Sorry, I keep making this about you, but are you?
Good.
Are you
doing trails?
Okay.
I'll do the back road as well. Sometimes I'll go the back roads to a trail or whatever the case may be. But yeah, just trying to get outside, enjoy the sun. Another way to get some exercise in. Yeah.
Well, you're asking about me. I went out to Goddard yesterday. That's why we're recording today. Being the great uncle that I am, I forgot my niece's birthday was yesterday, so. I kind of I pivoted plans and I changed things and I sacrificed our time together to go out and celebrate her birthday with her. But I got out there and I started to realize I think I'm gonna spend the majority of my summer out there. I like it's already a self-isolated city, right, in itself, and so I think I'm gonna kill my time there. And whenever I need to come back to Guelph, I'll come back to Guelph. Probably take my old mic and light out there as well, and be able to get even further from you to do this.
That's perfect. And maybe you got AC over there. I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah. My uncle isn't as cheap, so hopefully I can utilize his AC. So this weekend, James, we had the match too. Now, you weren't able to catch it live. I was, but I mean, you couldn't go through the internet, social media without coming across a couple of clips, whatnot. I think overall my takeaway from it was so much more entertaining than I expected to be. I've gone through a weekend of golf and I always have to take a break at some point. I usually just tune in on a Sunday night if I'm really, really committed to watching it. But man, those guys were so funny. If anything, I tweeted this, I think Peyton Manning rose his price for being on television eventually.
Yeah, you know what was also a nice little underlying part too is Eli Manning on Twitter is now an account.
Yeah,
and he was going off on Sunday, which was a great follow. But as far as the views and everything goes, it does seem like they did kill it. And again, that could be because we don't have any live sports, but the match one, I don't think got as great of reviews.
No. Oh, I was going to say 5.8 million. So it was the highest viewed golf event. And that in relation to those are Last Dance numbers. I think the Last Dance was averaging 5.6 million. So it's the highest viewed golf cable event ever. But you're right. I mean, a lot of people are home right now. I'm sure those numbers would be a bit construed, a little different if we had the option to be outside.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it's funny you say that. 5.8 million watched on that Sunday. But you and I spoke about when Tiger made that won that last PGA Tour, how that felt like the whole world was watching. So I'd be curious to see what numbers were on that Sunday comparative, just because that felt like such a huge event.
Right.
But no, Peyton Manning, I think people originally for those ESPN reports about how much they offered for broadcasting and stuff, I think everyone was kind of originally like, what's going on here? But dude, this guy has a knack for it.
Oh no, he's a natural, absolute natural.
I would argue. I think he could pick up a mic in a stand-up comedy club and do 15 minutes of probably decent stuff. Like he has a huge complete knack for just talking.
Yeah, and I feel like he even toned it down. Like, he could have made that entire thing about him. They could have, out of the 4, I think they could have mic'd him up solely, and it would have been, like, a fine broadcast. Because I think my winners and losers from this, I mean, they're all winners because, I mean, you end up raising $20 million for coronavirus, right? Mm-hmm. It's a great success and all that sort of stuff. But, you know, Peyton was kind of the obvious winner, but I knew going into it like he would be. But Phil Mickelson was amazing. And, not knowing anything about not knowing anything about golf, I was nerding out hard when he was being Brady's caddy, essentially.
That was a common theme for everyone, kind of, really. And so this is the world we live in today, right? Where you have the ability to go out and do your own thing. And even the match itself, I think, is more to praise Phil's side than Tiger's. I think the first one was kind of all Phil, right? And that was a huge moneymaker for them. It's very smart, very business savvy. Like, if Phil wants to keep going on that train, I know he would get multiple millions of subscribers on a YouTube golf lesson channel, little tidbits here and there, nothing crazy. But no, I agree. I saw a couple clips of that and I was like, cool. I don't really care, but still cool.
Yeah, no, it was totally cool. And like, it's funny because Barstool seems to post Phil Mickelson clips all the time. So he already kind of has sort of a niche and sort of a market with sort of that, that sort of crowd. So, I mean, it's definitely there for him. I was like most disappointed in Tiger, though. I thought Tiger was going to talk a lot more, but like you could tell that his competitive side had just taken over and he was just so focused on playing a golf match, right? And that's kind of just who he is.
That's exactly it. Like, even after the first match, I remember when I was talking with my buddy about that. I did watch that one, and they were saying, I can't wait to hear Tiger on the mic. I was like, dude, that's going to be a mute. Like, that guy, bro, he's only tried to win for 20 years. That's all that he's caring about. He's never had a joke on a golf course.
No, he only had one good jab, and, I mean, it was so obvious, like, Brady just couldn't find it. I think that was the one thing that people were really enjoying was, like, we're on the same level as Brady when it comes to golf, just because he couldn't even keep it on the fairway. And Tiger had a great job. He was like, "Oh, that's great, you got it on the fairway." And then he said, "On the next hole," right? And that was like the only good nugget that we really got from him. But I was kind of disappointed in that sense. But the other 3 kind of made up for him, especially when Brady hit that shot off the fairway. Like, that was nuts. Absolutely absurd. Like, for me, I don't have patience for that game, and I would have been so flustered that I would just quit up to that point.
Yeah. No, it's dude. So this talks about this is a different part that I want to talk to you about. But how do you think, like, what is your expectation of an athlete at a professional level in a different sport going to something that he's terrible at? Like, what did you think Tom Brady was going to perform like before the event?
So I would think that if he would agree to something like this, he wouldn't blatantly put himself out there to be bad, right? I think at the end of the day, these are all athletes and they kind of want to be semi-good at another sport. So I don't know if it was the rain or the weather or they both had, all 4 of them had said they were nervous. I mean, I remember at one point, Phil Mickelson said, like, me and Tiger are really nervous. And then Peyton said, if they're nervous, you can only imagine where me and Tom Brady are right now with our psyche, right? So I don't know what played into it. I mean, it was a torrential downpour for most of it, right? It was raining a lot. So I would like to think that they would think that they are good enough to play with, 2 of the greatest that ever played the game in golf. But we look at Aaron Rodgers and Steph Curry, like, those are 2 viable candidates to be in a match 3 if that were to happen as well, right?
Yeah, no, that would be. I'm all in on that one. I wouldn't even go with Aaron Rodgers, to be honest. Listen, you don't want to hear him mic'd up. You don't want to see
the discount double check.
Yeah, I don't know. I would go all basketball and go with find another guy, but I think Curry and Andre Iguodala are like common golf competitors between the 2 of them while they were running for that Golden State. So if that would be one I'd like to see.
The only thing is, like, I think you need like top tier athletes, right? And I don't think Iguodala would be enough of a sell, unfortunately. Another name that's being tossed out right now is like Jeter and Jordan, right? If they can get Jeter and Jordan out there, that would probably be a lot of fun as well.
I don't think HR wants Jordan out there, but that's my opinion.
You don't think so? They don't want to promote cigars on the golf course, eh?
Well, it's gonna be for fucking like charity, and then eventually Jordan's gonna put down a $4 million bet on the back 9 on a fucking par 4 or something. So
That was another great aspect to this game was, Russell Wilson, Bruce Koepka, all these guys were pitching in and saying, if, you can get it within 12 feet of the hole. For Brady, it was like if you could just get par before, you get to the back nine, which was really interesting. It was really cool to see all these other athletes participate. Charles Barkley, obviously a huge winner from this too. He was hilarious during this. And I really like that he was in it with the perspective of how to play golf for dummies. Like he was asking all the questions that I would really want to know because I really don't know why you would do certain things, right?
But that might be more because he actually doesn't know what the fuck he's doing out there on that course.
Well, if you've seen his golf swing, then you definitely know. So
yeah, it looks like an injury waiting to happen.
But definitely super entertaining. It also kind of helped us reassure that we really do want to hear these athletes while they're playing. We were talking about the podcast last week. You said, if the NBA comes back, it would be great to hear sort of the basketball players talk more. But again, I think the problem there is you have to get permission from the players and the coaches, which we probably won't get if we want to do that.
Probably never going to get. And, they were – I listened to a podcast that was talking about that and saying, why don't we just change this over to regular golf, I get it. I think it's better in moderation. I think it's better every once in a while we have it. I don't know if I want it like night in, night out kind of deal. So I like what Phil's doing with the match, but I think that there should be more golfing events like that just to improve the sport of golf.
I totally agree with you.
As a viewer.
Yeah, there's no reason why we can't have more skins games like we have with these guys and just have celebrities or big names and pros. Like JT, is it Justin Thomas, the pro that was doing the play-by-play as well?
Yes.
I think so. Does Justin Thomas ring name? Because they kept calling him JT, but he was a guy that was riding around on a golf cart, following the guys, and he was kind of their sideline reporter. And he was he was a big winner from this too. Like he was really, really funny. He called Charles Barkley a fat ass, which you have to have a lot of cojones to say that to somebody that you don't frequently work with. So that was really, really great as well.
And it's funny. These guys are all good at that, but you're putting them in their element too. Like I know that you're not much of a golfer. I've golfed a couple times. I don't like to golf. But when you go golf with a couple of buddies, right, usually there's a couple pops involved. There's, it's very loose. It's joking around. You're throwing – no one's actually that good. So
right.
It makes you feel more like a regular person with a pro athlete.
It humanizes them, right?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And, again, Brady was a perfect example. We saw him shank so many, crapped out. But then you have that one good hole, and that's just enough for you, right?
Dude, that's what I mean. It's just – I think – no matter what sport you put like the LeBrons, the Bradys, the Tigers, these guys in, I think they still do one or two things that are like, whoa, shit. No matter what.
Catches them off guard. Yeah.
Yeah. And Tom wasn't even that impressed with him sinking that shot, but that was very impressive.
For me, I would have been running around my cart. I would have been running back and forth like a madman, but he was just like, you know what? Shut up, Charles. Shut up, Charles.
And dude, I'll tell you why, because Tom Brady doesn't get over things that well competitively like myself, and he's been thinking about the other 10 shots that he fucked up. That's why he's like, I don't give a shit about this one.
Right. Yeah, no, because at the end of the well, you even saw it towards the end when Payne missed a close chip or whatever it was. Like Brady was like, let's go, we're still in this thing. Like he wasn't being classy at all, right?
I'm telling you, man, him and Tiger should be on the same team because that
would have been an interesting dynamic.
It's the same style, right? It's the same
I
style.
feel like that's probably why they weren't on the same team, because they needed two different person, contrast, right? So
because Phil and Peyton need to chirp each other in order to actually have dialect.
Exactly. Well, and it was a lot of fun, and hopefully we kind of get more things like that. I know I just saw this weekend ESPN is having a bike racing challenge with a bunch of celebrities and golfs. And I probably won't tune in because there's not a lot of big names, but I think there's more of an effort being made to kind of have sort of events like this. The horse thing was kind of a write-off. It didn't work out the way they had expected it, but good thing that the golf thing did pan out.
Whatever you think of trying to do, don't do it by Zoom and it'll be good.
Right, exactly. No, you're 100% right.
That's it.
Definitely. So speaking of sports, obviously more conversations being had about sports returning. Things are looking even more promising now. Going to kind of start, in a direction I'm sure a lot of people on the podcast wouldn't expect, but I do want to talk about the NHL because the NHL has just introduced this new 24-team playoff format, and it was brought to a team votes on Friday, I believe, and then it was passed that night. Some of the details is, right now there's a discussion of four city sites. There was 15 requests put in. It's down to 8 right now. They're saying it's most likely going to come down to 2 cities. Vegas is like the overwhelming favorite right now, hopefully for good reason. And then there's talk that a Canadian city should be one of the final 2 because you're going to have a couple of Canadian teams in the playoffs, and it just make it easier for crossing the border or whatnot. Just the difficulties that would be involved with that. It was a 29-2 vote. The 2 teams that didn't vote in favor were Tampa Bay and Carolina, which was interesting. And I find that interesting because Carolina would end up playing New York in the first round, and they went 0-4 against them. So I don't know if that had to play into factor. They've denied it, obviously. But at first glance here, James, what are some of your quick takeaways from this 24-team play format that they've pitched?
Dude, at first glance, I have to admit that this seems fucking wishy-washy right now. This.
What do you mean by wishy-washy?
It doesn't seem – nothing really seems solidified in a sense as far as logistics going forward. You have the understanding of what we're talking about, right, the voting pass and the ideas and stuff, but no one's really concrete, it feels like, on – what's happening. And some of the stuff I'm reading is this isn't that ideal. So one of the things that were mentioned was of these 24 teams, the first 4 teams of each conference get a bye in the first round, just like you normally would with the first 2. But then the whole worry is, well, now these guys are all going to sit out a 7-game series and haven't played in 2 months. Mm-hmm. So now the proposal is they want to have a round robin competition with the top 4 seeds during the first 7-game series to reseed those guys for the next round and give them games in the first round. But I see right when you read that, right, when there's something so exotic and there's so many different parts, you're just I don't know. This doesn't seem like a good idea yet. This seems like a lot of shit going on. Why are you guys so married to a 7-game series if you added more teams into the playoffs? So if anything, wouldn't you want to shrink those?
Well, isn't part of it to eliminate the whole – because they normally have a wild card round or something to wild card, right? So this just eliminates having to have wild card teams.
Yeah, and I understand that, but if you're going to reseed the first 4, why wouldn't you reseed the bottom 20?
Right.
I don't understand. See, once you bring out that at a press conference with guys and GMs and coaches, they're all just putting their hands up. That's all I'm picturing is people just going, wait, but this is stupid, but this is stupid. Mm-hmm. So I'm not that happy with the NHL's idea going forward, but we'll see.
That's interesting. Yeah. So I do want to clarify that this vote was to okay this 24-team playoff format. And it's not to okay to start moving things forward, right? There's still a lot of hurdles to overcome. Like we said, the travel, there's still, the border's still closed off. So they have to be concerned about that. And obviously the cities that would have to host all this. So you're not obviously a fan of the proposed format, but just looking at the format and how it's laid out, do you think anyone benefits from this? Do you think there's a team that's benefit from the time off? Do you think just the way that it's panned out and where the teams have lied, do you think that one team hurts from this?
Well, hockey's special, and hockey's very different, in my opinion, out of all the major sports, especially when it comes to playoffs, because I have never looked at a seeding of a playoff team in hockey, and it's never mattered, man, and it never will matter. It never, ever will matter.
St. Louis Blues proved it last year, right?
Well, dude, even further last year, Tampa Bay had the best record in the NHL at the end of the regular season.
Yep.
And got swept by Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
So, this is completely about momentum, chemistry, timing. So, to answer your question in a very long and weird worded way, it depends. What was your status as a team before the break? Where are you now? I know the Leafs were down a ton of defensemen and a couple of backline forward guys that now they're probably going to have back. Leafs are looking good now. I would say that this helped them astronomically because they needed help on that back end to recover. Other teams, right? You don't know. Is Boston going to be able just to pick up where they left off? I would say no way. I would say no way. No way you can just stop for 3 months and then just, okay, let's get back to being the best team in the NHL. This to me is flipping so many coins for for these teams in this sport specifically. I wouldn't say the same about basketball, maybe baseball, but not basketball, football. I'm not in the same kind of vein of thought, but for these guys this way, I don't see why you wouldn't do an entire group stage like we're eventually talking about with the NBA, hopefully, but an entire group stage format for the NHL. If you want to reseed the top four, reseed fucking everybody. Forget about the 7-game series, right? Get that play around. Use the group stage as your reseeding, yes, but also as your games that don't matter, and let these guys get 4 games on the ice that they can actually come back from.
Right. Well, and you make a great point. Like maybe that's why they're reseeding the top 4, because the momentum is so important, and they just need, these 4 teams to have some games under their legs, to get moving, get some chemistry build up going into the playoffs. But then you also make a good point. Like if you're going to reseed the top 4, then why aren't you reseeding the entire thing? I think there's a really good point that you talking about how hockey playoffs are different from other sports. We've discussed this on the podcast, but we don't think that home ice advantage is such a big deal. And in this scenario, that's completely wiped out. So everyone's got a clean slate. And specifically with the Leafs, I like that you brought them up. I think this really benefits them because you don't have all the drama that was happening with Nylander, Marner, Babcock. All these things are now, in your closet. They're tucked away. They're swept away. You don't have to worry about that. You come into a training, because essentially these guys are going to have their training camp with the system that you want, with the new coach that you have, and you know exactly how you want to play moving forward. And like you talked about all the injuries, and then the whole goaltender situation is hopefully cleared up by then as well, right?
All right, for the Leafs and for a lot of teams, I would treat this as an entirely new season and a very strange one. And man, this is a culture of sport that these guys play into shape very commonly, very, very frequently. I don't know what guys are going to look like.
Right.
Like
absolutely.
When you ask who it could favor, right? In my mind, I want to say, well, Washington Capitals are an older, experienced team that have been there, right? They had all this time off to hang out. They're very, very experienced guys, so they probably can hop on the ice a lot quicker and at a higher level than most others. Maybe them. But then, again, I could also say Ovechkin comes back at 255 because he didn't think there was going to be a season, and he looks like shit. So I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what hockey culture is like in terms of, working off in the off season. I know they're notorious for like being on the golf course and playing a lot of golf. So that's an interesting conversation, is how many of these guys are actually putting themselves in shape. A lot of hockey shape is, certain equipment and facilities and stuff like that too, right? So I don't know if they've been able to take advantage of those sort of things.
Exactly. And that's something that we're going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, definitely. No, it should be interesting. I'm sure in the coming weeks we'll find out more and more. Like, again, you've had all these loopholes that I didn't even know about, so it should be interesting what comes out.
I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't get the NHL, but I think if we get the NBA and we don't get the NHL, they're really fucking that up.
Right. Well, and I think that's where the pressure lies. I think the NBA, again, is kind of on the forefront of everything. They've started to move the ball and things. And again, we joke about it every week, but baseball doesn't seem to make any sort of progress. And that's a whole different conversation, a whole different problem. But, it would really hurt the NHL if the NBA came back in Dayton, especially because they play in arenas and ice rinks. And like, it's kind of, it shouldn't really be an issue.
No, I'm. And if it's Vegas, dude, half these guys are in Vegas anyways. Who cares?
Right.
You guys all got a place here anyways. What does it matter?
Right. Well, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of restrictions, and I'm sure casinos probably won't be as accessible and stuff like that. So hopefully they don't. Yeah, exactly. Hopefully they won't be they won't fall victim to all the guilty pleasures that come with Vegas, and
hopefully they only let a couple seats at the blackjack table as opposed to all of them.
Exactly. So speaking of the NBA, that there's these ideas coming up. They still have to come to a vote in terms of if there's going to be a play-in tournament, if they go straight to playoffs, is there a couple of games to be played beforehand? But the most recent development was reported by Brian Windhorst, and they have they're suggesting a 16-team playoff format. They come right into it. But the interesting caveat to all this is that they would reseed everyone. So, for example, the Bucks would be the number 1 seed overall, and I think the worst team would be the Magic, right? So, I find this to be very interesting. Instead of having a discussion about this, I thought it'd be really fun for us to kind of break off the entire playoffs and go all the way through and see how this thing plays out. For example, I love this idea because it's a completely new knot to all this, and it's just fun to see. The Raptors and Grizzlies, for example, you would never get that because one team is in the East and one's in the West. But there's a bigger chance of a Clippers-Lakers finals, which would be really, really intriguing for NBA viewers. What I don't like about this is the Raptors, unfortunately, will have to go through the Lakers in order to get the NBA finals. I think their path to eventual repeat champs is a lot harder. What were your kind of immediate takeaways from Lance?
My immediate takeaways are about fucking time that we have the best 16 teams in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And we've spent 5 years listening to people complain about LeBron owning the East, yet no one wanted to make a fucking vote and just make every good team in the playoff. Like, I don't understand why this is taking so long at all. I agree with it. I think it's the way to go. I also like Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer wrote a piece today that just came out today recently about going the group stage method as
soccer, right?
As the reseeding value. And man, I really, I'm a fan of Kevin O'Connor, but that part aside, I'm always, and this, I've always thought so highly of soccer and how they actually do things and the weird kind of nuances that they do different than most other sports. And this group stage thing, man, makes a ton of sense when you think about it. It solves everything, right? No one gets eliminated. So you separate your 5 or 4 stages, however you want to figure that out. I don't even care. If you want to add more teams to the 16, if you want to take away, whatever. But you do your group stage, you get a new seed. From there, you get 4 games of basketball under your belt that didn't matter the outcome, essentially, right? Because you still get to play anybody anyways. And again, that puts you in that mentality of you're going to have to beat the best teams no matter what. So if you're the Raptors, you're not worried about that sucks. You got to face the Lakers, but we're going to have to face it eventually anyways. Because in today's day and age, if you think anyone gives a shit about Eastern Conference or Western Conference championships, I don't think anyone actually cares.
Right.
So it's good. You're putting more of the onus on trying to get the best 2 basketball teams in the NBA Finals, which is the most important thing for sure.
No, most definitely. The other interesting thing that this presents, like we're talking about home ice advantage, for a lot of these teams, this totally changes their playoff situation in terms of, a team like Miami, the Miami Heat, the Nuggets, the Jazz. These teams really rely on that home court advantage. I mean, the Raptors are probably another great example of that as well, right? With the Nuggets and the Jazz, you kind of, they always talk about the high altitude, right? That sometimes affects road teams coming in. Miami, obviously, the vices that come with going out in Miami and trying to avoid that and trying to get through a playoff series. Even like the Clippers, I think, are really interesting because they if they played the Lakers in the playoffs, they run into the problem of having more Laker fans than Clipper fans at their what are supposed to be at their home games because they play in the same arena, right? So I think that kind of benefits the Clippers because I think that they wouldn't have to worry about that. The Lakers, I think, are kind of a team that, has been striving for, that top seed to get playoff advantage throughout the playoffs for LeBron and company. So I think that definitely presents an interesting knot and hole all of this as well.
Well, what you're doing right now is you're pointing out a very important piece that everyone's very quick to dismiss. So, because the easy response to what you just said is, well, this year doesn't matter. Because it doesn't. This year doesn't matter. Everything else is out the window. They probably don't even have any free time to go do anything bad in cities anyways because they're going to be quarantined. But what this is going to do is set a precedent. So if there's fucking record views and there's a bunch of and this works and everything's phenomenal and perfect, next year they're going to do it again. And then when you bring up what you just said, they're going to say, shut the fuck up, it works.
Right. Well,
so
and I think
someone's got to say that.
I think a lot of the reason why they want to experiment and try to get because if you reshuffle everything, everyone's going to be curious how things are going to pan out, right? And that's going to drive up ratings. The NBA ratings have come down significantly in the last couple of years, right? Given technology and people just really tuning in the playoffs and whatnot. But they also have to combat with a possible NFL schedule because they're going to have to run into deep September. So they're going to have to pull all the bells and whistles in order to get some sort of attention.
I think it's the right move to do. I do. And I would love to see huge, massive, weird things that we haven't seen before, and then a couple of them stick. They don't all have to stick. But I mean, I think both you and I feel passionate about this, that if you're going to come back and try this, at least be fucking creative.
Yeah, most definitely. Well, and
Like, at least.
a lot of people I've seen on Twitter, I think Cousin Sal was one of them, but they're like, the NBA is so stupid for wanting to combat with the NFL. But like, for one thing, the NFL is only 3 nights a week.
Yeah.
And the second thing, it's September, right? It can't really affect ratings that much that it's September.
And dude, we can't go to games. Like again, you're just not, you're missing the point. We can't go to them. We're gonna watch them.
Like, you're not telling me I'm gonna have one screen with NFL red ticket, and then I'll have another screen with the NBA playoffs. Like, there's no reason why I can't do that, right?
Dude, if we're in a second phase of quarantine and like sports are still going somehow, or something, like, oh my God, doesn't matter.
Absolutely.
You're watching everything.
No, totally. All right, so I want to kind of break this down because I do think it's an interesting conversation. The only thing is, I've just noticed that the photo that I sent you, I'm pretty sure the Bucks bracket and the Clippers bracket are together, and the Lakers and the Raptors. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just
picture like March
looking
Madness,
at it,
right?
Oh, I get. Okay, you're right. You're right. Because it would go that way. Okay.
Yeah.
So in this situation, we would get a Bucks and Jazz series in the first round. That would be a hell of a series,
dude. Like right away, the moment you just said that. Now I'll be the most mad if we ever go back to West and East.
Yeah. No, because like
the Jazz first round, dude. Bucks Jazz first round.
The Jazz were catching some momentum going into the after the All-Star break, so they were starting to come formable, especially with the additions that they made. But the interesting thing here is like Bogdanovich has decided that he's going to shut down this the remainder of his season, so that coming off the bench, that takes away a little bit of firepower. Best of 7 series. Where do you think this goes?
I mean, I got to go with the Bucks and Giannis, but this matchup is already speaking to what us as viewers are kind of dying for. When you go East and West, you got what is it, Bucks Magic?
Yeah. And what? I don't think I did this right because it wasn't supposed to be the Bucks and Magic. This is the standings.
Yeah, I don't know what. It doesn't matter. I think I can tell you right now what you're talking about, what you wanted to pull off.
Hold up. I'm going to find it. You know what? I'm going to pause us here for a second, and I'm going to fix this in post.
It's Bucks Magic.
It definitely is Bucks Magic. Oh, here it is. Okay, let me send this to you in the chat. And pull this up.
Dude. I'm good.
Oh, you got it? Oh, damn.
I have my own. Yeah,
you selfishly got your own. Okay, so let's rewind here for a second. Okay, so first round matchup would be the Bucks and Magic. What do we think about that? That's totally different conversation than the Bucks and Jazz.
Right, and that speaks to just the Eastern Conference because that's kind of the 1-8 matchup if it was East versus West, right? And that's something that we've.
Well, when I let off with this, I said we would get a Bucks Magic first round, so that makes sense.
Right. So yeah, that's a guaranteed win for the Bucks. But what you're more looking forward to are these Memphis Grizzlies, Toronto Raptors matchups that we have lined up right now.
We're gonna get there. Okay, we're gonna get there.
Okay. So the Nets and Lakers.
So do we think? So we think Bucks and Magic, like that's 4, right? I don't even think that goes 5 games.
It's 1. It's over in 1. It's done. You don't have to play either 3.
Okay. So moving down to the next one, we got the Heat and the Thunder. Now, this one's a really interesting one because this is where 2 teams have been robbed of sort of a home court advantage, right? Because both these teams play really well at home.
I'm a huge Heat guy, man. Heat's winning that matchup. But again, dude, these guys don't play each other in the regular season. This is pieces of the puzzle that the viewers don't necessarily understand. And that changes everything.
This is our first Eastern versus Western Conference team, right? Because Bucks and Magic obviously both in the same division.
Going with this method, you're going to have so many more upsets. Many more upsets. Because teams aren't going to be used to playing certain guys. Like Rudy Gobert is a problem for Giannis, but not when it's in one series at the end of the year. Right?
So this matchup between the Heat and Thunder, because I struggled with this one. You think it's just a runaway Heat?
I think it's a runaway Heat thing. I think OKC, they were too hot, too good, too early, and now all this pause and everything, it's just going to throw them up.
I also think this is an interesting matchup because this is a matchup where the Heat were trying to get CP3, right? So is this kind of like a CP3 saying that you didn't push hard enough to get me? Does he use that to motivate himself?
I'm done with that with CP3. I think he's doing well. I thought he was going to suck in Houston and OKC, and he's proved me wrong both times.
That's actually very true. All right, so the next one is one that hits home for you a little bit. This is Celtics and 76ers game. 76ers very good at home, so obviously that hurts them a little bit. But I got to think that, all this time off has got to be in favor of Brad Stevens and Celtics.
Yeah, and that's a young team. Kemba Walker was super injured going around that point of the year. Robert Williams was hurt as well. He was a bit of a key guy. This Celtics team is younger, energetic, longer. Gordon Hayward, the more time that Gordon Hayward gets to rest, the better. The only person I didn't want to stop playing basketball was Jason Tatum, and that was because he was kind of entering a different level, and I hope he can still stay there. Hopefully he's been shooting every day. I don't know, but I like Boston in that series, and I like Boston as a sleeper to win the NBA championship in this format.
Okay, we have not
in this format.
We have not gotten there
in this
yet.
format.
I think this also hurts the Sixers because they are a team that obviously, their Achilles heel has been chemistry, right? Trying to figure out how to use Joel and how to use Simmons. And I think all this time off is going to hurt them because they have to go back to the drawing board and try to figure out how to do that. So I unfortunately will have to agree with you and say the Celtics come out in that series.
In the next year or two, Ben Simmons or Joel Embiid are in a blockbuster deal.
I completely agree. Next one, really, this one would be fun. Clippers and Mavericks. You got Luka Doncic coming into his own, and then obviously you have one of the favorites in the Clippers. But I think we both agree that the Clippers have to be the overwhelming favorite in this one.
That's a team that you have to be worried about that's getting rest too as well.
Absolutely. Well, they were a team that, through the course of the NBA season, I didn't think it was till January they didn't have their starting five all together since
that's right.
The NBA had tipped off. So you're right.
But whenever they are together, they're like 7-0 or something. Like
right.
Undefeated.
And I think for a team that's really good in defense, all this time off is really good for you because that's the core of your basketball team. And if that's what, your defense is going to lead to good offense. And I think that, so if you're a team that really relies on offense and you haven't had a hoop and you haven't been able to shoot on a basketball, then that's going to hurt you coming into this, right?
100%. 100%.
And if you can rely on your defense as your backbone, you can come into this and have no problems.
And I'm pretty sure I wouldn't know the stats off my head, but I would say the Clippers are a top 5 team at points in the paint, just the way the styles the players are. So.
Right.
Hold on. All right, we got to take a break. I got to pee so bad.
Go ahead. That's got to be a first. So this is a quick commercial break as James takes a piss break. I'm glad he didn't take his headphones with him because then that would have been super awkward. So just fast forward through this part.
All right, I'm back.
All right. Quick commercial break there. We are back. You wouldn't last the NBA draft if you had to do a live segment there, eh?
No, not a chance. Not a chance.
All right. So moving over to the other side of the bracket, we have the Lakers and Nets. This would put LeBron James against his former teammate in Kyrie Irving. What do you see in this matchup?
Because I've heard that KD and Kyrie are not coming back, I don't see much.
I've heard the KD. I haven't heard the Kyrie, but I can imagine that Kyrie would probably be like, if KD's out, there's no way I'm playing.
Yeah, and I think especially, too, if that LeBron storyline's there, he might not even play.
Not even touch that.
I think the Lakers are fine there, no problem. But I'd be very hesitant to say that they're still the favorite.
Oh, really? In that matchup?
No, the Lakers coming back,
Gotcha. Okay, easy. Don't be jumping the gun here. Save your takes for later on. Up next, we have the Jazz and Rockets, and this is where the Jazz would be, and still a really interesting matchup.
Rockets.
Okay. You hesitated, or were you?
I don't think Conley has done enough, and maybe this break helps him and brings him kind of to flourishing with Donovan Mitchell, which I would love to see them really coexist and really work well. Mm-hmm. I think the Houston Rockets experiment is going to make Rudy Gobert confused. It's going to fucking kind of screw up that whole defensive system. That's not a good matchup for Utah. And I hate saying that because I don't know. I don't think I like Utah as a team better than Houston. Obviously, if you look at the roster, you're like, oh, that's an actual basketball team as opposed to just a bunch of guards. But I think Houston beats them.
Well, going back, we criticized the Rockets and that this would not work because they would run out of gas eventually, right? Like the small ball lineup of, Harden playing the 4-3, whatever he was playing, getting rid of Capella. Like it just wasn't sustainable for an entire NBA season because by the time they got to the playoffs, they would be completely gassed out. But now with all this time off, you're telling me, Russell Westbrook's got more energy. Harden's got more energy. I mean, I've seen, Harden's working out in the sun and everything.
Have you seen a photo of him?
Yeah, he looks like swole.
I thought he was doing a weight cut for an MMA fight. I was looking to see if he was on the next card. I was like, what's going on here? This guy's skinny.
Well, I think that him eliminating strip clubs from his lifestyle for the last couple of months, I think has probably benefited him, like less chicken wings on his diet. So,
Dude, don't you wish you were so talented that you were addicted to strip clubs and chicken wings, yet you still averaged 40 a game? Oh my god,
that guy's living the dream, to say the least.
Whatever.
I think you make a really good point, though. I think the Rockets come out of this series given their style of play, and the Jazz just not being able to get it together. And again, I said Bogdanovich is out for the remainder of the playoffs as well. Like that's a spark plug that they'll definitely miss going through.
And on the Rockets as well, the biggest winner of a format that is kind of everyone's mixed and matched, and who knows, the biggest winner is the Houston Rockets, because they're the most afraid of the Lakers because of Anthony Davis, and they're most afraid of the Bucks because of Giannis. And if by chance Houston never actually has to see them, that'd be very nice.
Right. Well, yeah, but unfortunately they'd have to play the Lakers in the next matchup according to our format here. But up next would be the Nuggets and Pacers. Nuggets, right?
Yeah, but I think this is a very good basketball series.
Matchup. We're getting 6 or 7 games out of this.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah. No, because I think the thing that would hurt the Pacers is they're still a very young team. There's not a lot of vets. Also, Oladipo was just coming back from his injury, and then all this happened. So then he would have to work himself back into basketball shape, and I just don't think it would be enough time.
But that may have helped him.
Yeah, right? I mean, it could have worked the other way in favor as well.
Right? Because Oladipo, and again, here's the thing that people don't understand too, is that certain states are opened up facilities before other people. So Texas, we know, has been open for a while. Texas is like, you can go to a dinner at a restaurant.
You know what? I didn't even think about that. You're very right. Like, they've been open for a while, right? They're
talking about Harden and why he's in shape is because I think he's probably been working out and shooting this whole time.
Right. Very, very true. That's good. Hey, that's good background check on that, James. Up next is our beloved Raptors, the returning NBA champions, and they face the formerly of Vancouver Grizzlies, which I think is going to be a fun fact, right? Raptors, Grizzlies, Ja Morant, and that young basketball team coming in and playing the veteran savvy Raptors.
Dude, I'm all in on Memphis. I love those guys. I would love them to go back to Vancouver. I'd love them to relocate there. I'd love them to get the jerseys back. I like it. I love the team in the future, and I mean, it's obvious this is a Raptors win, but I think it's a super fun series. Memphis might get 1, 2, sure, 2. They might steal a second game. I don't know.
Well, I also think that, we're talking about teams that would benefit with time off. The Raptors haven't had a full, healthy Gasol. And I think, Gasol has proven to give other centers a tough time. And I think Valanciunas would just be, in his kind of grill and would probably just, fall victim to Marc Gasol as well. And then again, the Raptors were just waiting to get everybody on the same board with Norman Powell and all these other guys. And I think, for a team that already knows what their recipe to success is and what kind of chemistry they need and what they need to do to be successful, they can kind of just revert back into it. And I can only imagine Nick Nurse has been, under the scope and working tirelessly to get these guys in the proper shape to get them back into basketball form.
Both those Raptors and Celtics teams, long, pretty young, got a lot of benefit from the rest. A couple key guys injured. Again, pretty deep rosters. I would say that they're in some of the best positions for these kind of playoff formats.
Absolutely. All right, so heading back the other way, we'll have the Bucks and the Heat. Bucks. I can't. I mean, I can make a case for the Heat, but I think at the end of the day, Giannis would just be too much for them.
I'll take the Heat in that one.
Oh, damn! Really?
Yeah, this Milwaukee Bucks team is going to fall off a cliff here in this too random pressured situation. Milwaukee's going to lay an egg.
I'm feeling good about wearing my Heat shirt right now. God damn!
Yeah, there you go. I genuinely believe Milwaukee is going to lay an egg, and I think a team like Miami is the one to cause that.
Oh, this will be interesting because the only way this exercise works is if we can agree on the teams. Okay, so we're going to have to come back and see. Well, the thing is, you're probably going to have the Celtics going to the finals, so that might not even matter. But we'll come back to that. So we're both split on the Bucks and Heat. Then we would have the Clippers and Celtics, and you think that the Celtics can upset the Clippers?
I think they could. Yeah. I do.
Oh, I thought after hearing it in your head, you may have changed your mind.
No, I do.
You believe that?
I believe that.
Why do you think the Celtics can be the team to hold down Kawhi Leonard and Paul George?
I believe when you look at a full group team defense, okay, so let's take this point back to previous, because I know that you always just seem like I'm just sounding like a Celtic lover and it's just about the Celtics. When the Golden State Warriors were winning year in, year out, all the time, every game was won, they were always the best defensive team in the night. You know, like they were able to switch. I remember I told you, I went back and watched these old Golden State games, and Sean Livingston's out there, Harrison Barnes is out there, Andre Iguodala, 3 guys in crunch time for this Golden State, because they're out there because they're playing defense, they're switching on defenders, they're causing issues defensively. Brad Stevens, the best defensive mind in the NBA. These guys have this long, you know, with these 2 bigs, Tice I like, and Robert Williams, that can do enough as a big man and hold who you're going to hold, which again, you're not stopping Anthony Davis to 4 points. You're not stopping Giannis to 5 points. These guys are going to get their 40s and 50s. I understand. But apart from matchup to every team in the NBA, you're long, you're wide, you have multiple scorers, you're a team-oriented team, and you're also your first-ranked priority is defense.
Mm-hmm. No, I unfortunately I can't agree with you. I think the Clippers just have too many weapons at the end of the day. So I think that side of the bracket would probably look like I would have the Bucks and the Clippers, and then you would have the Celtics and Heat. I think the Clippers are really benefit from all this time off, and I just think that there's just too much, you know, even because you have Doc Rivers on the other side, right? I like, no credit taken away from Brad Stevens. Obviously, he's like one of my favorite coaches and probably one of the favorites to win Coach of the Year alongside Nick Nurse. And I guess the Doc would be in the conversation as well. I just think that there's just too much veteran leadership on the other side to fall to the Celtics.
It's fair. It's a fair point. And we'll wait and see. And we'll watch Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, all these bums on the Clippers that love to shoot the 3 because they think they're the best. We'll watch
You're
them.
Right. You're right. Because Morris and Jackson could definitely be the detriment to this Clippers team and end up hurting them.
If you think Brad Stevens doesn't have a defensive plan for the LA Clippers, you're crazy.
Yeah, well, I'm sure as soon as he saw this format, he's like, okay, how do I beat this Clippers team, right? Yeah. Other side, Lakers and Rockets, which would be really, 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 really fun, especially in a dome. I can only imagine the amount of shit talking and, you know, the intensity that would come with the series. Who do you like in this series, James?
I'll take Lakers, but I'll take them in 7.
Yeah, I think it would go full series as well, so we can definitely agree with that.
This Houston experiment, man, experiment for now, potentially the way of the future of basketball.
Yeah, it's tough because like the Lakers don't have. I think between both sides, the Lakers really have a tough out. Well, I guess the Nets wouldn't be so bad for them. That would be kind of a cakewalk. But
dude, how good is Danny Green and Avery Bradley after this layoff?
Oh yeah, that's actually a really good point.
You were getting a lot of production from those guys in the season, but I don't know, man.
Yeah. All right, so Lakers moving on in that side, and then we have a Nuggets Raptors, where I think if the Nuggets had home court advantage, but they wouldn't because the Raptors have the better record, would be beneficial. But
home court won't matter.
Yeah, but Marc Gasol versus
Jokic is a fun
Jokic one. Would be a lot of fun.
I still think the Raptors easily win that one.
Yeah, well, I think, you know, one of the flaws of that Nuggets team is you never know who's going to be the second guy, right? And in most cases, it'd be Jamal Murray. But then you have a lot of guys like Kyle Lowry, like all these guards, Norman Powell, that you can throw size on them that could contain them. And I just don't know what they would do after that. So I agree with you.
Now, don't think I'm not comparing the two. This isn't a comparison. But do you feel a similarity between the Tim Duncan and Joker?
In terms of their style?
In terms of like how a team should work around them, you know, I think like it feels like he needs not just one other guy or like like Tim didn't need Tony Parker and Manu, but because of Tony Parker and Manu, that team was that team. Because Tim is so good, you know, like Jokic is so good and he's always going to be good, but he's not like I'm going to take this over and win this thing for you.
Right. Like, you're not going to say, oh, okay, they got Joker now to take over the final 5 minutes of this game. You're absolutely right?
But you can hang your hat on running an offense through him for 4 quarters, for 24/7, 10 years.
Yeah. No, you're right. They're very similar in that sense, right? But the only difference I would make is, and I mean, this goes back to the style of basketball and going through your big. You could give the ball to Timmy in the post, and you could you can count on him to create for himself if he had to. But
Right.
the luxury of that team is he could also kick it out to Tony and Manu to create for themselves as well. Whereas Jokic doesn't have that luxury.
Right, and it's exactly why I didn't say compare, because Tim's shot creation is uncomparable to not even no. But
Yeah.
I think Tim Duncan as a passer doesn't get enough love, and I still think he's a better passer than Jokic is right now. But I'm saying as far as running that system through a big man, not a lot of teams do it, and San Antonio had so much success doing it. Where I think this Nuggets team, like they keep kind of running it back, and they have their guy, and I like Jokic. I don't think he needs to go. I just think you clearly need more. Clearly.
Yeah. So then your next matchup would be your next matchup would be the Heat and the Celtics, and then mine would be the Bucks and the Clippers. Where are you going with the Heat and the Celtics? I don't even know what I'm asking. Okay, so you got the Celtics
in seven, man. I
think if they play. I think it'd go 6. I mean, it's not much different from 7, but I think they would lay quick work with them. After 2, they have to go through the Thunder, and then they have to go through the Bucks. I think they're exhausted at that point.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too.
Yeah. So you would have the Celtics in the NBA Finals. Surprise, surprise.
So hold up. Let me get this straight. The Celtics would have to play the Lakers and then the Bucks? That doesn't make any sense.
No. They'd have to play the Clippers and then the Bucks.
Oh, the Clippers, right? Okay.
Yeah, Clippers. Yeah. Because then you have the Lakers on the other side. So then for me, I would between the Bucks and the Clippers, I would take the Clippers again. I think Kawhi's experience on Giannis and him knowing what he has to do to contain him and keep him to the minimum, and then I obviously trust guys like Beverly and George to do their part.
How many games?
Slowing down the rest of things. Oh, that would go 6 or 7 for sure, easily. I don't think it's a cakewalk at all. 6
or 7 easily. You don't think it's a cakewalk?
No, not for either team. What you think? You think in that series it's a cakewalk for the Clippers?
Yeah, I would.
Interesting. So you think the Celtics are that good,
5. I think the Celtics are good. I just think this Milwaukee team's not going to be the same after this layoff. You're going to see a ton of stuff that you can't necessarily put your finger on.
Fair enough. Lakers and Raptors, a dream conference final. Well, I guess I can't call it conference finals, but semifinals. That would be a lot of fun, because you got to imagine that Nick Nurse is going to play his janky box and one defense at some point.
Yeah,
but then you have Anthony Davis too.
Dude, I think Marc Gasol would go on AD, and Serge would kind of have to kind of team that one up. Maybe OG would help him out. But LeBron scored 70 on the Raptors for 10 years.
I was going to say, we all know LeBron is the Raptor killer, right?
This guy, it doesn't matter if there's a crowd or not. When he sees that damn fucking logo, he's just like, all right, I'm getting 60. Lace him up tighter. I think it's over. But
it's funny because I feel like Raptor fans would get PTSD, right? As soon as they found out that we got to see LeBron again, they'd be like, oh, great, here we go.
I would give him the benefit of the doubt, though. I bet you that's a 6-game series, and that's a real fun one.
I think it would be unlike any other sort of LeBron versus Raptors series. This Raptors team is really well equipped. I think they would be able to take advantage of everything that they know. They're obviously a better defensive team. They're a better offensive team. And again, they're going to be healthy. So it'd be interesting to see that matchup, to say the least. But I think we both agree that the Lakers would move on. But I don't think it's not a clear consensus. Like, I'm not like it's definitely the Lakers.
Like, let me see how the Lakers look first, I wouldn't. I'm not putting money down on that. The Lakers. Right. No way.
Lakers Celtics for you, Lakers Clippers for me. It's kind of the dream matchup that I kind of wanted. And are you taking the Celtics as champions?
No, I'll take the Lakers.
I'm glad there's a little bit of realism there. It starts to settle in.
I don't know. We'll see. This Laker team will be the most interesting for me, just because I think, at the end of the day, when we left, we were kind of like, all right, that was probably the winner. And I'm just very curious to see how this time off will
because they're a team that really got hurt by this, right? Because LeBron was building a campaign to win MVP, because Giannis was – I forgot that Giannis was missing games, right? He was hurt too. But they were building a lot of momentum to be the favorites and the team to beat in the eventual NBA Finals.
Yeah, and I think those, the Lakers, the Bucks, even like the Nuggets and Jazz, these guys aren't getting benefit from this.
Yeah.
You know, these teams that care, that drive off chemistry, that drive off of, you know, experience of playing with each other. This is a killer, dude. Killer.
Mm-hmm. And for me, Clippers, Lakers, I go with the Clippers. I think the Clippers would be well suited to beat them in the NBA Finals. I think that the Lakers' road would be a little bit harder, and they might be a little more beat up till the NBA Finals.
Okay. So the Clippers win the NBA Finals this year. Are you putting an asterisk on it?
No. I think at the end of the day, it will always be a story. It will always be a story. Okay, go ahead.
And Kawhi Leonard wins the Finals MVP. Okay, so let's say he's a back-to-back champion on two different teams, which has probably never been done. Unless Steve Kerr did it. Steve Kerr did it with San Antonio, but he wasn't.
No,
the best
didn't back-to-back? I don't think, but Kareem did it, right? Or was it Kareem that did it with the Bucks and then the Lakers? Yeah.
Yeah, but this would be Kawhi's third franchise now with the ring.
Oh, right. No, that's never, ever been done.
Now, this would be his, fifth ring?
No, Raptors, Spurs. No, it would be only Spurs. I think he only has two, doesn't he? He only has one with the Spurs. When
it's
they beat the
not
Heat.
five. I think it's, so this would be his third ring or fourth?
This would be his third.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because he only won one with the Spurs.
Right, so it'd be his third ring, and it'd be his third NBA Finals MVP. So he'd be 3 for 3 as far as rings to NBA Finals.
Yeah.
So you see where I'm going with this, correct?
What conversation about him being?
When does this?
When does it start? I mean,
does it start at 3? Does it start at 4? Does it start at 5? Because again, now the GOAT conversation and the LeBron and the Jordan. The thing that, for me, after the doc separates it, Jordan was 6 for 6. He was 6 for 6. He was there 6 times. He won 6 times. He won 6 Finals MVP 6 times. And that's it. Now, I don't think Kawhi's going to beat Jordan, and I don't think Kawhi's going to beat LeBron. But you could argue that if Kawhi gets 2 more of these things or 3 more of these things, and he has he's lost 2 finals, one to LeBron or one to I don't know the numbers on San Antonio. That's why
he lost one to LeBron. You're right.
So just the one finals loss. If he only has one finals loss and the same amount of rings as LeBron and more finals MVPs, I'm just saying again, the load management, no regular season MVPs. The guy doesn't care about what anyone thinks. He cares about winning. So
he definitely enters the conversation. He has to enter the conversation, right? Because then you're talking about, you can take this player and just put him on a team and build around him, and he can make anything work.
It's wherever. It's who needs a ring. That's what it becomes. His frigid talk becomes who wants a ring, because now I just bring them wherever I go. I get them. Exactly.
No, it's because I liked how you prefaced that and you said, now, is there an asterisk beside this? Because I don't think there's this, because at the end of the day, you still have to play all the teams in a 7-game series. Like, I think if we're talking 3-game series, if we're talking a one and done, whatever, then there's questions about, did he really have to go through the gauntlet? Was it really that tough? But the fact that you're reseeding, you're playing teams that you typically wouldn't play as a second seed in the West, it's a lot tougher. You could almost argue it's almost as tough. Obviously, from a mental aspect, because there's no fans cheering you on, you're not getting booed, you're not getting yelled at. That aspect of it changed. But from a physical standpoint, you're still taking the same toll on your body trying to win. You still have to win. What is it? You have to win 16. No, am I doing my math right? 16 games, right, to win the NBA championship.
Yep.
So, I don't think there's an asterisk.
Now, so that's so if there's no asterisk, then we also have the other potential narrative and increase it to his legacy, where LeBron would add his 3rd championship on his 3rd team.
Mm-hmm. And it's the same conversation. Like, LeBron still has to go through this. LeBron still has taken the same amount of time off that all these players have in the last 3 months. Like, there's no competitive advantage during this time, right? I mean, obviously, financially, LeBron has some of the tools that some of these other players don't have, but he's not playing against other bodies. He's not banging with other guys. He's not having the access to build chemistry with his teams earlier than anyone else is.
And to that point, I think you're going to see in this format is that the games aren't going to be won and lost by the guys that are the best. The LeBrons, the Giannis, the Anthony Davises, the Hardens, they're all going to show up, but I think what we're all not really getting enough credit to is that if Avery Bradley shows up, now the Lakers are dangerous. If
Mm-hmm.
Danny Green shows up, now the Lakers are dangerous.
Don't forget to put Caruso in there.
And Alex Caruso.
Can't forget about the GOAT.
Fuck.
No, it's a fun conversation. What if? And I just wanted to do it just in case the NBA decides to nick this and be like, no, we're just going to go back to the conferences. Or, fuck, we could get to July 15th and find out we're not finishing the season. Like, that's still a possibility. So
How would you feel if everything was regular and we went to this format and we had a double LA finals?
I personally think that's a dream scenario, because given what we saw the Christmas Day game and then even the rematch, I mean, those games were intense. I mean, I think the Clippers came away with both games, right, at the end of it? Yeah. So it would just be a great revenge story, right? And I think that's I think everyone wants to see that. And I think if you're the NBA, you want to see that too. Like, this is an ideal situation if you want to combat NFL ratings possibly.
That would be financially probably the best 14 days for the state of California possible.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. They'll be doing it in front of Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck in Orlando, right? So that'll be a lot of fun as well. So.
It'd just be interesting to see how that would affect later. And again, if if we sped up a year from now and fast forward it, you're talking about two teams facing off in the same arena with no overhead cost to travel anywhere. And the NBA is just making pure bank on a double LA final.
Yeah, but I don't think financially you can't do better than people sitting in seats and buying concessions and all that sort of stuff, right? I think that TV deals can take you so far.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. Next year, when you have people back in the seats, hopefully
do you stick to this
you
format?
Can get it. But then you do want an LA final then, right? Because then you can have a huge hub in LA we're not going anywhere. There's no travel.
Right.
So you have media day every day and all that stuff, right?
Well, you almost create a Super Bowl circus, right? For the course of a couple of weeks. So you're definitely. I think there'll be a lot of conversations, because the reason you keep it East and West is because relatively travel wise, it keeps it a lot easier in terms of financial and the burden of longer flights or longer bus rides, whatever it is. But you're right. It's a conversation. I'm sure once they see the ratings, it'll be like, hey, we might be onto something here.
Oh, I hope so.
Yeah. All right. So we'll put a knot on this. Obviously a lot of fun. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what we can do in the coming weeks, but the way the news is rolling out, seems like we're going to have something to talk about all the time.
Yeah.
I do want to recommend, I think I'll be able to drop this podcast before 7, but tonight's the episode 1 of the Lance Doc drops at 7:00 on TSN. So if you're able to watch it, I highly recommend it. Obviously through my back channels and dark web, I was able to watch it on Sunday evening, and I learned a lot, man. I learned a lot about Lance Armstrong that I did not know before. So
okay, so I have to ask you a question, because this is like the first question about Lance Armstrong. Going into it, did you know he was a complete and utter asshole, or did you not know he was a complete and utter asshole?
No idea. Absolutely no idea. All I knew was the Livestrong bracelets. I thought it was a great.
Okay.
I didn't know he was. I knew that there was some level of egotisticness, if that's a word. Like he was. His biggest fan, I guess you could say. But some of the level, like him, I don't want to ruin it. But I know. That you watch, you just like, I'm shocked he agreed to it. I'm really, really surprised he agreed to it.
I knew his career a little bit more than I think you would have known, because I've known he's the worst guy ever.
Yeah.
But see, your response is the most common one, man. So if you're out there listening to you, all you know about is the Livestrong bracelet. This is the best watch for you.
Yeah.
This is very eye-opening.
All I knew was the Tour de France wins, France, whatever, wins, and then obviously him having to battle well, I cannot speak to the cancer, and then obviously all the money that he raised to fight it and combat it, and obviously using that as leverage, right?
But that's another point to kind of hit home on. And again, the guy can be as shitty as he wants, and he may not even have done it for the right reasons, or whatever, but his production for cancer research and that helped.
Contributions, yeah.
Oh my God, dude. Massive.
That's the hard thing, because every time I watch it, I'm just like, this guy was an asshole. The other thing too was he was cheating, but so were the rest of the cyclers. Like, that's another thing you have to keep in mind as well. You have to watch it. Maybe, you know what, next podcast we'll talk about all this after this second episode. I'll have to link you, and you'll have to just trust me and watch it. and
then if you haven't already, then if we're doing that, I demand that you have to watch Icarus on Netflix.
Isn't that the?
It's a cycling documentary.
Who stars in it? I can't remember it. I just don't know if I've seen it. I'll watch it if I haven't seen it.
Do you want to know who stars in it? A Russian doper.
That's enough for me. Okay, cool. So we'll try to talk about Lance. So this is your heads up if you haven't seen it yet, try to watch it, and then we'll break down Lance and his career. And it'll be a great conversation because knowing what you know, and then me kind of going into blindfolded, it'll be a lot of fun. So looking forward to that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, James. Take care, guys. Thanks again for tuning in. As always, you know where you can find us: Spotify, iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube. And yeah, enjoy your week. Enjoy the weather. I got my headband on. I'm gonna go for a run right after this, and soak in some sun. James, try not to hop on that bike and get injured before our next podcast.
No promises.
All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.